I just got back home from watching Moana 2, and the big question on a lot of people's minds right now is, did we actually need Moana? Or was one enough? And also, will I ever stop making terrible puns? Answer, no. But let's talk about Moana in the meantime. What's up, my dude? Your friendly neighborhood Tony here, and as I do with all my movie reviews, I'm gonna give you a little bit of information about Moana 2, who made it, what it's about, all that good stuff. Then I'm gonna go into my expectations and the things I did and did not like about the movie, the pros and cons. And finally, I'll let you know who I think Moana 2 is for, if anyone. If that kind of thing sounds cool to you and you want to keep up to speed on all the new big movies coming out, make sure you subscribe. Okay, so a little bit of information about Moana 2 and basically how we got here. So the original movie came out in 2016, which is about 8 years ago now, and it was pretty successful, but after that, it kind of got quiet on the Moana front. Then in around 2020, I think it was, or 2019, they were in talks about making a Moana series on Disney+. And in 2021, I think, they put the original movie Moana on Disney+, and it became the most streamed movie, or one of the most streamed movies on the platform. So I believe at that point, some high up at Disney said, maybe we should just make another movie instead of a series. And a couple years later, here we are. Now, the original Moana was directed by a couple of guys who are absolute legends in the world of directing Disney movies. They've got credits like Aladdin, The Little Mermaid, Hercules, which is another one of my favorites, and the music in the original Moana was done by Lin-Manuel Miranda, or at least he had a big part in it. However, none of them are returning for Moana 2, which is a little concerning. Instead, we have a team of directors, I believe it's 3 people who are making their directorial debut, and a couple of musical artists who I'm not personally familiar with, but you have them coming in kind of in place of Lin-Manuel Miranda. So a little concerning for sure, and that kind of feeds into my expectations coming into this movie. Now, I did not watch the original Moana when it first came out back in the day. I actually hadn't watched it at all until very recently. And after watching the first movie, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very well done. There were a lot of things in that first movie that I feel that if they were able to replicate in this sequel, could have made for a really solid movie. Now, of course, I do recognize that the original movie didn't really lend for a follow-up. The story was kind of concluded at the end of that one. And with a lot of the talent not returning for the new one, or at least some of the more significant players not returning, I was pretty concerned. But was I right to be concerned? Well, let's start with the pros. And the first thing that I noticed when watching this movie is honestly the first thing that I noticed when watching the first movie, and that is, it is very beautiful. I love the bright, vivid, colorful locations that they show. It's just really pleasing to the eye and fun to look at. Also, I think the characters are very well animated. There's a lot of fluid movement, a lot of action and dance, and a lot of expressions that the characters have. Visually, I think it's very well done. I also think that the characters are just fun to be around. You know, when it comes to especially kids movies, or at least movies that are primarily aimed at children, it's really important to have characters that you just enjoy spending time with. And that's something I have to remember when reviewing this, is that this is not Citizen Kane. This is not some super heavy adult movie. This is something for kids to enjoy in theaters and at home on streaming. And I know there's going to be a lot of reviews out here nitpicking all the faults with the movie, and that's totally fine. But I think it's important for people like myself who are critics to remember who the audience is here. So yes, I think Moana 2 is very visually pleasing. I think the characters are a lot of fun. Yet again, we're introduced to several new characters in this movie, and each of them has their own unique and quirky personalities. I genuinely ended up liking a few of the characters, and I would have been excited to see them in an ongoing series if that's what they ended up doing, which of course, as we know, was their original plan. I think that the concept of the overall plot of this movie was interesting. I don't want to give you any spoilers at all here, but what the main characters are trying to accomplish throughout the movie, I think one would have made for a very good series, but truncating that into a feature film, I think also really worked. And I want to say some of the songs in this movie, even though we didn't have, of course, Lin-Manuel Miranda returning, I think there were a couple of songs that I genuinely enjoyed. Now, are they on the same level as some of the hits from the first movie? That's hard to say after one viewing, but I can definitely see a bunch of kids singing these songs incessantly. So I think they're gonna stick. I also like a lot of the humor in the movie, especially with The Rock's character, Maui. He has a few lines in the movie that are genuinely laugh out loud funny. There's a number of fourth wall breaking moments, which are pretty clever. And I think that the brand of humor is something that will work for kids, of course, but even for adults. So there's a lot to enjoy there. But of course, it's not all rainbows and sunshine. I do have a few issues with the movie that I have to get to. So let's get into the cons. The first big con here is in the storytelling. As I mentioned, the first movie ends without really the need or any kind of inkling that there's going to be a continuation to the story. It's kind of done. And because of that, the first 15 minutes of this movie is spent with exposition and with the characters basically explaining what the plot of the movie is going to be going forward. They have to set up the lore, they have to kind of explain what the purpose of the hero's journey is going to be. And the way that they do it is a bit clunky. If you are somebody who watches a lot of movies or reads a lot of books and you understand how story structure goes, it's just not smooth. You recognize exactly what's happening way before it happens. But again, I'll reiterate, this is a movie for kids. So I don't think most of them are going to be thinking, oh, is this character giving me exposition right now? Another con I will say is most of the music, although I mentioned earlier that there were a couple of songs that I enjoyed, specifically one of Maui's songs I thought was fun, and a song by this other character who is this goddess. She's some kind of like bat deity. She has a song that I thought was really good. But aside from that, the majority of the music in the movie is kind of forgettable. There certainly weren't any real earworms like we got in the first movie. Again, I still think kids will enjoy the songs. It's just when you're A/B testing from Moana 1 and Moana 2, it's pretty clear that the music in the first one's better. The last con I have here is that the movie does feel like it was supposed to be a series. The way that it's structured and the way that they are introducing these additional characters that kind of join Moana's group, it feels like something that would have been done in an animated series. Now, the production quality is still on a very high level, so I'm not saying that it's not worth being a movie that's released in theaters. It just feels like some of its bones are maybe made for an animated series. Now, all that said, I am overall positive on this movie. I do think that it's a good movie. I wasn't jumping up and down and singing songs from it as I left the theater, but I thought that I had a good time. And there were a number of young kids in the audience. It was a press and fan screening, and a lot of the kids in the audience were cheering and laughing and clapping throughout the movie. So, who do I think Moana 2 is for? Well, I think it's just that. I think Moana 2 is a movie that kids are definitely going to enjoy. Do I think it's something that you have to see in theaters? Not really. I mean, certainly the movie is very pretty to look at, and there's a lot of music and action and all of that, so it will benefit by being seen on a big screen with really good audio. But if I'm being honest, I feel like this movie is going to be more enjoyed on streaming at home on a Saturday morning while the adults are cooking or cleaning and the kids are just in the living room on the couch watching Moana 2. That's where I see this really living. So Moana 2, good, not great. The first is still definitely better, but I don't feel bad having watched this one. But of course, these are all just my thoughts, my opinions. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Have you seen Moana 2 yet? If so, what'd you think? And of course, if you just want to keep up to speed on all the new big movies coming out, make sure you subscribe. All right, my dude, I'll catch you in the next one. Be good.